Hey guys, how's it going? And today I have a replay for you featuring the Gaede. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's German and I know it has a first name and I'm not trying to pronounce that either. But this is the Tier 6 German destroyer. Now before I get into it, I want to say my opinion of the German destroyers is not great. I don't really enjoy these ships. I think they're very crappy in a lot of aspects other than just their gun bloom. I don't think they have great guns. I think they take way too much damage in my opinion. Their stealth isn't amazing. Their speed is definitely not amazing, and they definitely don't turn well. Now I'm launching torpedoes at that Cleveland way out there, even though he's not within my torpedo range. Firing my guns, which you shouldn't really do a lot in these German destroyers. But I was trying to reset that Hatsuharu, who has just popped their smoke screen. And my torpedoes are definitely not going to hit that Cleveland since he did turn away. If he was still sailing forward, he might have sailed within the 8-kilometer torpedo range that the Gaede has. But sadly, he didn't. Yeah, I really don't like these ships. They're very... I'm still going up the line, and there's a torpedo hit. There's two, and there's First Blood, the actually a Mutsuki. My bad there. Actually decided to stop right where my torpedoes were going. So that's an easy pickup for me. Easy 11,000 damage right off the bat. And as you can see, it actually took 2 torpedoes to sink that Japanese Tier 6 destroyer, and that does not have a lot of health. The torpedo damage of these ships is not very high. It's actually kind of low compared to other destroyers at its tier, except maybe the Americans. But they're quite fast and they do reload quite quickly. As you can see, mine are just about up again. Other things that are good about these ships, well, I don't know. I guess hit point wise they're decent. They have pretty good armor-piercing damage for harassing battleships and cruisers alike, but once you get in a brawl with another destroyer, you're kind of at odds unless you can somehow out-damage them. I actually tend to run the 155mm, or are they 152? I always get that mixed up. I think they're 152mm guns that this destroyer can run, just because I want to get that alpha damage if I'm not going to be hitting them very often, because I think the dispersion on these ships is a little wacky too. Those torpedoes are definitely not a threat to me. Even though I definitely want to make sure I avoid any close spreads to them, and they ran out of steam anyway. And I just got detected, but by what? Oh, it's that destroyer right there, the Farragut, the Tier 6 American destroyer. Now, his guns don't have a lot of alpha, but he does shoot rapidly, and he does have a pretty good stealth radius. Same amount of torpedoes as me, but I don't think they have the same range. I think it's slightly shorter. But he's not a threat at the moment now that I'm behind the island and undetected. And he did start sailing forward, and I did predict that with my torpedoes. So is he going to sail straight into those? I guess we will find out in a second. There he is, and there he goes. Well, it only took 1 torpedo to kill him. Looks like he took some shots beforehand. So that's 2 devastating strikes on destroyers so far. Now I am firing my guns, but I am behind an island currently, so I'm not getting detected, and I'm trying to bother this Cleveland with a little bit of high explosive spam. A little bit of damage there, not too much happening right now. Another thing about the German destroyer guns, they have a wicked bloom if you don't know. It should be changed pretty soon, but right now, their bloom is just so massive that when you fire your guns, it's basically like firing a battleship's guns. And they also don't have a very long range, so when you are shooting your guns, you're going to be relatively close to the enemy. And since they take a lot of damage from armor piercing because of their supposedly thicker hulls, or wider hulls I should say, thicker would mean more armor, and these definitely don't have that. They supposedly take more armor piercing damage, and that's definitely apparent when a battleship shoots at you because you will take full penetrations. I think Wargaming, when they were giving stats to these destroyers, because the super testers rated them very highly when they could stealth fire, I think they just gave them a big middle finger and kind of just said, fuck it, we're not going to give these things anything. Because they're not really fast, they have decent torpedoes, but they're also very short ranged usually. They don't have range like the Shimikaze, so they can't I guess they're supposed to be dedicated torpedo boats, but they just don't do that job well sometimes. Because if you can't get close to the enemy because you don't want to shoot your guns, then your torpedoes are kind of useless at the same time. I don't know, but I'm still grinding up the line. Maybe it gets better later on, I'm not sure. This is the first one that I've kind of sort of liked, but we shall see. Now I am launching my torpedoes at, I think it's the Nuremberg over there, that is sailing slightly towards me. As you can see so far, this is a very tier 6 heavy match. I have gotten this into tier 8 matches and going up against Bensons and Sims and stuff. Ooh, those torpedoes were quite close to me. But going up against rapid fire low stealth, or high stealth destroyers I should say, is not very fun with this thing. I do have to watch out for that Leander. He may be low, but I'm really hoping he doesn't torpedo me. That Nuremberg is really slowing down at the opportune moment to eat a couple of these torpedoes. Looks like he will miss the big group of those, but he's gonna eat at least one. And my guns are firing on him. And I guess I don't need to shoot him anymore, as the one torpedo hit he did take took him down. So there's 3 kills, 34,000 damage. Not looking too bad so far. Now I'm just gonna farm some damage while I still have a smoke cloud, because like I said, these 7-inch guns do quite a bit of damage when they do hit a target. Or I think they're 7-inch. I know they're like 152. I'm sorry if I'm getting these values wrong, guys. But of course, I can't stay in the smokescreen forever. It's going to dissipate because German destroyers, on top of all the weaknesses they have so far, do not have a very long-lasting smoke cloud. So I do have to get out of the smoke, even though the Leanders is right there. I don't really want to get in that either, because none of these ships are really in my range. They're starting to get towards the max of my gun range, and they're definitely out of my torpedo range. And seeing as though I want to use the torpedoes on this as much as I can, that really does not favor me very well. Especially since they're all kind of running away. That forces me to get extremely close to them, basically at the edge of my stealth range, which is 6.6 kilometers with Concealment Expert. And I basically have to get up in their faces and torpedo towards them and hope they don't turn. Firing torps at that New Mexico over there. Hopefully he doesn't turn either, because he is taking quite a pounding. But what I've noticed he's been doing is kind of turning his ship back and forth to let off a broadside every once in a while. So hopefully I judged those just about right and he will sail straight into them. They're actually looking pretty good right now. Right now, nothing around here poses a threat to me. The only thing I'm really worried about is if the enemy Shinonome, which is a premium that you can only unlock through campaigns, comes near me. I do believe that thing's a pretty good gunboat if I remember correctly. And it looks like those torpedoes are quite on target. Two torpedoes into New Mexico. Will he sink though? Does not look like he's taking flooding damage. Looks like my team will have to finish him off for me. I definitely don't want to fire my guns, as there's another New Mexico right there. 7 kilometers away, and if he put a broadside into me, even though he's firing high explosive, I'm definitely sure it would hurt. The 12 guns on that thing are definitely known to put a pounding into stuff that gets a little bit too close to that ship. But he has finally ventured out from behind the islands, and he is sailing away from me, which doesn't make it a great shot to throw these torpedoes at him. But like the previous New Mexico was doing, he's kind of turning back in to launch salvos at the 2 battleships behind me and the cruiser that's heading into the cap. So I'm going to drop these torpedoes. I'm going to wait to see if he turns, and I'm going to lead them a little bit further away in case he does decide to turn in. And then I'm not going to stay here for too long. I am going to sit still. Or maybe, no, I'm sorry. I am going to sit here for a little bit and make sure these torpedoes get to where they're going. I don't really have anywhere else to go. B is getting capped, but there's no support for me. It's down to me and these 2 battleships right now. So, as these torpedoes head towards New Mexico, I'm going to start firing my guns at him. Looks like he has turned in. I'm not sure if he has seen these torpedoes, as they do have a low stealth. Or they're not visible until you get really close to them. But I did get 1 torpedo hit off onto him. And now I'm loading the armor piercing because he is broadside, and as you can see, these guns do quite a bit of damage once they actually hit their target, doing about 1.5 to 2,000 damage whenever they get a good solid hit on the broadside of a battleship. And looks like I just finished him off after one of these 2 battleships put a nice shot into the side. So now it's me, a Koenig, and a New Mexico left. Oh boy, 4 enemy ships, 2 of them are destroyers. one I know is a Graf Spee, which, while it's not a great destroyer hunter because of its reload, it definitely does pose a threat.
Torpedoes to port.
Another thing that I didn't know about these German destroyers for you guys is as you look down on the hotbars, it has not radar, it has a sonar cooldown. These things can get pretty decent sonar, I think up to like 5.6 kilometers like the German battleships at the high tier. But at these low tiers it's usually around 3.5. But it is pretty good if you want to detect torpedoes for your team or detect torpedoes in smoke. I haven't really used it too much this battle, but I will make use of it in a little bit. Now there's the Spee, there's the enemy Koenig, and that's basically their two capital ships right now, and there is their Gaede. Now, I don't want to get in too much of an altercation with the Graf Spee and the Koenig looking over, so I'm going to kind of start to make my distance, but I don't want him to get close, so I start firing my guns. Like I said, gun bloom goes way up. You can see my detection range on the mini-map, and it's absolutely massive compared to my actual gun range. There's a fire on the enemy destroyer, but he did get behind the island, and so I can't really shoot at him. Those torpedoes are definitely going to run out before they get anywhere close to something. There's a shot from the Spee. He's not too happy with me, and I'm just trying to get my detection to go away. Now the Shinonome must be over in that corner because of the smoke cloud that's laid over there. They're probably waiting to ambush my battleships, and they're kind of sailing right into it, which they don't have too many places to go. They could have either charged the Spee and this Gaede and hoped the Koenig wasn't paying too much attention or wasn't getting good shots, or all those torpedoes missed, because the Graf Spee does have really good torpedo angles. Or I guess they had to go around and hope that they could catch him in the broadside. There's the Shinonome. The Graf Spee is so low, but I don't want to fire my guns. Shinonome is taking massive damage. I think that Koenig just put a couple really good shells into it. Dropping torpedoes towards the back of the Graf Spee because he is kind of backing up. Popping my smoke, dropping some shells at it, hoping maybe I can knock it out before it gets into range of my battleships and really does some damage. My Koenig is gone, so I just lost all my spotting. I have no clue where these enemy ships are, which makes it really hard to fire my guns. So I'm going to leave the smoke screen, try to spot for my teammates here. They still have 4 ships, we only have 2. Graf Spee's heading towards me, so I dropped torps. Didn't quite notice he was turning, so I did end up missing that. Or at least I missed them on the Graf Spee. Koenig's definitely going to dodge those torpedoes. No, he did take one. He took one right at the end rather than turning, and gives me the Confederate for 89,000 damage. Shinonome still in the corner, gets shotgunned by the New Mexico. Koenig's sailing forward still, and those torpedoes are actually looking pretty good even though I wasn't firing at him. They are on the very edge of my range, so will they make it? Come on. I'm behind my smoke screen so nothing's getting spotted. Oh, looks like I got one into him. And he is flooding. Now, he was flooding before, so he has used his damage control. And now it's down and he's continuing to take flooding damage. Torpedoes are up again, but I don't really have a firing angle on him. So as you can see, he's kind of going around the edge of this island. He probably thinks I'm over on the other side of the cap trying to get shots into the cap and trying to flush out their destroyers, which the Gaede and the Graf are the only 2 left over there. There's the high caliber as he keeps flooding, or the Koenig does at least. New Mexico sure is taking a pounding over there, but he did get the Confederate too, so I kind of think he knows what he's doing at this point. Gaede is very low. I wonder if that was due to my fire damage. I'm not entirely sure. Graf's very low. He's probably just hoping the New Mexico's guns just miss at this point, but I don't think that'll happen. He has gone out of detection though. I wonder where he went so that New Mexico wasn't seeing him. Koenig, there he is. He is still flooding. I did drop torps towards him, but once again, it's the very edge of my range, and I don't think these will make it. Unlike the previous torps, which did, these definitely won't. Unless he somehow turns in. But it does look like he's noticed them, and he has started to turn out, and they run out right at his aft. Yeah, that was too close. But he is still flooding. Will he flood out? That is the question. Nope, looks like he has repaired it. You know what that means? Time to get out the guns. I'm sick of seeing his ship float around. First 3 shots that hit him bounce, go figure. Second shot, trying to aim more forward to hit the little superstructure that he has, takes off a large portion of his remaining health as the New Mexico sinks the crash bay. Slow down, dodge his return salvo, hit him with at least 1 shell penetrated there. And there's my Kraken and the Liquidator reward for doing, I think it's 40% of his HP with flooding. I'm not entirely sure. I thought you actually had to sink them with flooding to get that reward, but I'd have to go back and actually check the achievement to see what the requirements are. So now that destroyer is very low, and basically we have to go hunt it in what is the wide side of the map, I guess. Which is not great for me because my top speed with speed boost is only 37.1 knots. Or I'm sorry, 38? I'm not entirely sure. I stayed at 37.1 for a little bit there, so I thought it was that. But it's definitely not fast, and while he is the same ship, that means he's going to stay fairly well away from me if he remains going in the same speed and direction as I am. That 100 health though definitely makes me want to get a shot off at him because he's quite low on health. Or I just said that. Well, basically 1 shell will kill him if it actually does damage. So what he's trying to do right now is not get detected basically. And what I'm thinking he's trying to do is torp my New Mexico as it tries to sail back towards the cap circle. New Mexico is not a fast ship, and well, he is very alone. He doesn't have any spotting over there. And especially since I'm about to jump in the B cap, he's going to have an idea of, or the enemy Gaede is going to have an idea of where I am. And he'll know it's about, or if he's smart, he'll find a good position to torp that New Mexico. There's his torps. Can't quite tell if the New Mexico took one of those. I don't think he did. But you do have to remember, these things do have fairly quick torpedo reloads. So while that New Mexico may or may not have taken a torpedo, the Gaede's torpedoes should be up by the time I get through this cap circle. So I won't have a lot of time to get over there, pop my sonar, and try to help him spot those. Does look like I will take this cap uncontested though. It looks like he doesn't want to come fight me, which I would do the same thing. If you know there was a fairly full health Gaede and a New Mexico waiting for you by a cap, and the New Mexico spotter plane actually just found that Gaede. The spotter plane seems to go out a lot further than the regular fighter, even though the fighter, in my opinion, has more utility. 2 seconds to cap. Now I can speed up and get out of here. Will the New Mexico snipe that? Nope, doesn't look like it. Now the spotter plane has come back around. He will not be spotting that destroyer anytime soon. So basically, now it's my turn. I have to get in there and find my counterpart. And as you can see in chat, I'm actually trying to help the New Mexico. I'm listing out the stats of the Gaede so that he knows when he's going to have to start dodging those torpedoes. That enemy Gaede was detected at 10 kilometers, so he wasn't in torpedo range. And he's definitely not going to see him until about 7.5 kilometers unless he does that and fires his guns. I'm going to start firing at him to try to take him out. Before he can do anything, will it hit? Yep, there it is. And I stopped the battle a little bit early. These replays still like to crash if you don't stop them before the battle ends. But I did get the kill on that enemy Gaede, leaving me with 6 kills at the end of the battle. German destroyers, in my opinion, very feast or famine. You could have 2 really bad games and then have one like this. It just depends on what the enemy fleet's doing and what destroyers, well, basically what the enemy destroyers do, because if you can have free reign on a side of the map, then you're golden. But if you can't, and you can't get anywhere near the enemy team to launch your torpedoes, it's going to be a pretty rough game for you, unless for some reason the enemy team's completely distracted from a destroyer that's firing its guns within 10 kilometers of the nearest enemy ship, and can be detected from across the map like it's some kind of Yamato firing. So, really mixed opinions on these ships. But I digress. Going into the first of the end screen shows I did 130,000, or almost 130,000 damage, I should say. Didn't quite make it that far. Liquidator, First Blood, Kraken Unleashed, 2 Devastating Strikes award, High Caliber and Confederate, definitely adding to the flag count. 9 torpedoes hit with 6 ships sunk. Not a bad ratio there. 2 of those were definitely destroyers because the torpedoes definitely don't do enough damage to do that. And 9 floodings caused with each torpedo. These torpedoes definitely seem to have a high flooding rate, though sometimes you'll get one that kind of duds and doesn't want to flood for you. And adding to the experience that I earned this match were definitely 3 defended medals, that solo capture, and the 1 assisted capture that I had. So those will definitely boost the base experience that I got. Going into the team list, of course, shows me on top with 2,500 base experience, and that New Mexico that earned the Confederate and lived on towards the end of the battle with 1,700 right below me. Very good job to him. Now that Leander that came in 3rd must have been that one that almost torped me. Looks like he got out a lot of damage before he actually died, but I'm kind of surprised that since he died so early he got as much experience as he did, though I guess he did sneak into that cap zone in the beginning right before I did get in there with him and got that assisted cap. Enemy team, Graf Spee and the Gaede on the enemy team both finishing with over 1,000 base experience, so this must have been a pretty bad loss for them. The Graf Spee definitely stuck it out to the end, and I know the Gaede was putting in some pretty decent work with the torpedoes when the Koenig and the New Mexico sailed into that gap. So good job to them both, and good try to carry your team. Finally, going into the damage report, I kind of wanted to point out that while these guns do cause a lot of damage, if you get good shots with your armor piercing, it's really your torpedoes that are gonna cause the most damage for you in a match, unless you get something like a fire or a flood. Out of the 130,000 damage it did, only 17,000 was with the main batteries. 4,500 was with the high explosives, showing that they're kind of weak. They don't do a lot of damage at all, and your fire chance is fairly low. Armor piercing shells are definitely the strong point of these ships. I think they're kind of like the German cruisers, where they have a much higher than average alpha damage for their armor piercing, so it'll cause a lot more damage if you do find a good shot with them. As you can see, I scored 3 times what I did with the high explosive, coming in at 12,000 damage of my total. Torpedoes, 80,000 damage. Definitely not bad for 9 torpedoes. Usually if you got 9 torpedoes in something like a Shimakaze, which kind of a bad comparison since that's a tier 10, but you'd definitely be over 100,000 damage in my opinion. So yeah, they're kind of low damage. I think even the Mutsuki you'd be quite a bit higher than that. But the 32,000 damage that I did with flooding definitely chunked into the what was it? Total damage? Sorry, it's kind of late. But it definitely chunked into the total damage that I did that match. Really, you kind of have to abuse the fast reload of these torpedoes. I mean, if you can stagger the torpedo drops, if you're good enough to hit torpedo drop after torpedo drop after torpedo drop, and the enemy fleet feels like sailing in a straight line for you, then abuse that damage control party cooldown and abuse the short reload of your torpedoes so that you can keep the enemy team flooding, because that'll definitely add to your damage and EXP that you earn at the end of the battle. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you have a great day, and good luck out there.